The air inside the wedding hall felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. White roses adorned every table, flickering candlelight casting soft shadows on the pristine tablecloths. The scent of jasmine and champagne lingered in the air, blending with the quiet murmur of guests. It was a beautiful wedding, perfect even, and it should have been mine. I stood in the farthest corner of the grand ballroom, hidden beneath the dim glow of the chandeliers, watching as my sister Lauren basked in the glory of my stolen dream. She looked radiant in her dress, a designer gown fitted to perfection, with intricate lace patterns that trailed down the train. Her dark hair cascaded in elegant waves, and her makeup was flawless. She had always been beautiful. That was never the issue. The issue was that she never wanted anything until I had it first. I clenched my hands into fists, nails digging into my palm, as I watched her standing at the altar. The guests whispered in hushed excitement, waiting for the moment the groom would walk through the side entrance. Eric was late. Not late enough to cause a panic. Not yet. Lauren smiled tightly, glancing toward the door. Her fingers curled around the bouquet, knuckles white against the delicate petals. Another minute passed, then another. A murmur rippled through the guests. People shifted in their seats, exchanging uncertain glances. Where was the groom? Lauren's smile wavered, her eyes darting toward our parents. My mother gave her a reassuring nod, but I could see the tension in the set of her shoulders. 5 minutes. I could hear someone whispering in the back row. Maybe he got stuck in traffic. 10 minutes. My father cleared his throat, his face turning red. Someone go check on him. He muttered to one of the groomsmen. 15 minutes. The murmurs grew louder. My mother was now clutching my father's arm, whispering something urgently in his ear. And then, it happened. A chime rang through the hall, a notification on someone's phone. Then another. A ripple of movement as guests checked their screens. Lauren's bridesmaid gasped, her eyes going wide as she looked at her phone, then at Lauren. Lauren must have felt the shift in the air. She pulled her own phone from the pocket of her dress. Of course she had pockets. Practicality had always been her thing. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked the screen. Then I saw it. The color drained from her face. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something, but no sound came out. I already knew what the message said. I didn't need to see it to know. Lauren swayed slightly on her feet, as if the world had tilted beneath her. Someone, a guest, maybe a cousin, called out hesitantly. Lauren. She didn't answer. The phone slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a hollow clack. Silence fell over the hall, thick and suffocating. And then someone, somewhere in the crowd, finally voiced what everyone was now realizing. The groom is missing. I couldn't help it. I smiled. The silence stretched, thick as honey, suffocating in its weight. All eyes were on Lauren, the perfect bride in the perfect dress, standing alone at the altar, abandoned in front of 100 people. My mother was the first to react. She rushed to Lauren's side, whispering something urgent, probably trying to salvage the moment. My father followed, his face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. The guests sat frozen, unsure whether to stay or leave. But I just stood there, watching. Lauren, always so poised, always so sure of herself, was unraveling before my eyes. Her fingers twitched at her sides. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly as if she could will away reality. It was happening. Everything she had stolen, everything she had taken from me, was slipping through her perfectly mannered fingers. Then, without warning, she turned and stormed off the stage, nearly tripping over the long train of her dress. My mother rushed after her, calling her name, but Lauren didn't stop. Gasps and murmurs filled the air as she disappeared through the side door. My father, red-faced, muttered something under his breath before following them. And just like that, the illusion shattered. Guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Some shifted awkwardly in their seats, while others stood, unsure whether they should leave or wait for an explanation. I knew the wedding was over. Everyone did. I turned on my heel and walked out, my heartbeat steady, my breath even. Outside, the sky was a deep shade of blue, the air cool against my skin. A part of me had expected to feel something. Satisfaction, triumph, maybe even guilt, but all I felt was peace. It was over. She had taken everything from me. My fiancé, my wedding, my dream. And now, she was standing exactly where I had stood a year ago. Alone, humiliated, betrayed. Karma was a beautiful thing. Hours later, as I sipped my wine on my balcony, my phone buzzed. A message. I set my glass down, picked up the phone, and my breath caught in my throat. Eric. I made a mistake. I let out a small, humorless laugh. Of course he did. I stared at the message, fingers hovering over the screen. For a brief second, I considered replying. But then, with a slow exhale, I locked my phone and set it aside. Let him sit in his regret. I had nothing left to say, but the night wasn't over yet, because the real fun was just beginning. I woke up the next morning to a flood of messages. Group chats, missed calls, unread texts. I didn't even have to open them to know what they were about. The wedding disaster had spread like wildfire. Curiosity got the better of me, and I tapped on the first message. Mom. Call me. Now. Of course. She probably wanted me to support my sister in this difficult time. I scrolled further. Aunt Marlene. Cassidy, darling, I don't know if you were still there when it happened, but it was awful. I feel terrible for Lauren. She was devastated. If you can, reach out to her. I rolled my eyes. Then another one. Tessa. Old college friend. Girl. I need details. Did you know he was gonna bail? Because if you did, I owe you a drink. That was iconic. I smirked. I hadn't known Eric would leave her at the altar, but I had suspected. I'd seen the way he was in our last weeks together. Distant, uncertain, restless. He was the kind of man who always thought there was something better waiting for him, just out of reach. Lauren had thought she could tame that she was better than me, that she could keep him in a way I couldn't. She was wrong, and now she was paying the price. But I wasn't done just yet. By noon, my mother had called 5 times. On the 6th, I finally picked up. What? I said, my tone flat. Cassidy, she exhaled, as if my name alone carried the weight of her disappointment. Lauren is a mess. She won't stop crying. She won't even leave her room. This is a nightmare. I stayed silent, waiting for the inevitable. You need to talk to her, my mother pressed. She thinks you had something to do with this. I laughed. Actually laughed. And why would she think that? Cassidy, my mother warned. She's your sister. Was she my sister when she stole my fiancé? When she planned my wedding for herself? I asked, voice dangerously calm. My mother sighed. I knew you'd say that. There was a pause, a hesitation. Then quietly, she's scared, Cassidy. She thinks he left her for someone else. That made me sit up a little straighter. Someone else? I echoed. My mother hesitated. He left a note. Just a few words. I'm sorry. I can't do this. There's someone else. A slow smile crept across my lips. Oh, Eric, you absolute coward. So he hadn't just abandoned her. He had humiliated her in the worst possible way. She had stolen him from me, only to lose him to another woman. Poetic justice. Cassidy, my mother's voice softened. Please, just talk to her. I twirled a strand of hair between my fingers, considering. Then I said, I'll think about it, and hung up. An hour later, I got another text, but this one wasn't from my mother. It was from him, Eric. Can we talk? I stared at the screen, my pulse steady. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, I typed back. Me. Sure, let's talk. It was time to hear what the runaway groom had to say. I met Eric at a small cafe on the other side of town, where no one would recognize us. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner, head down, fingers drumming against the table. Nervous. Good. I took my time walking over, letting my heels click against the floor. When I finally slid into the seat across from him, he looked up, eyes shadowed with something that almost resembled guilt. Almost. Cass, he started. I held up a hand. Save it. His mouth closed, and for the first time, I saw something else flicker in his eyes. Uncertainty. He wasn't sure where I stood, whether I was furious or amused, whether I hated him or pitied him. I wasn't sure either. I leaned back, crossing my arms. So, you ran out on my sister, left her standing at the altar in my wedding dress, in my venue with my guests watching. And now, you want to talk. He exhaled, rubbing a hand down his face. I screwed up. I raised a brow. Which part? Leaving her, or choosing her in the first place? A muscle in his jaw twitched. Both. For the first time since sitting down, I felt a strange, twisted satisfaction. He knew. He knew he had made the wrong choice, that he had lost something good, only to end up with nothing. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't even know how it happened, Cass. 1 minute I was with you. We were happy, right? I didn't answer. He sighed. And then Lauren. She got in my head, told me things, made me doubt. She was always there, whispering that you didn't love me the way I needed, that you were too focused on your career, that I'd always come second to your work, and He hesitated, shaking his head. I believed her. I clenched my fists under the table, so that was how she did it. Not by seduction, not by passion, but by planting seeds of doubt. It wasn't enough to take what was mine. She had to convince him that I was the problem. I forced my voice to stay calm. And now? Eric let out a bitter laugh. Now I see the truth. She didn't love me. She just wanted to win. And when I was standing in that room about to say I do, I realized. He looked up, eyes dark with something unreadable. I didn't love her either. I inhaled slowly, measuring my words. So you left her for someone else? A flicker of something passed over his face. Guilt, regret, hesitation. I left her for me. I tilted my head. And why tell her there was someone else? He looked away. Because it was easier than telling her the truth. Coward. Silence stretched between us. Outside, cars rumbled past. People laughed. Life went on. But here, in the small cafe, the past was unraveling between us, thread by thread. Finally, he exhaled. I know I don't deserve anything from you, Cass, but I needed to tell you. I made a mistake, a huge one, and if I could take it back. But you can't. The words came out sharp, final. He looked up, startled. I leaned forward, meeting his gaze. You can't take it back, Eric. You can't undo what you did. You can't erase the fact that you chose her over me, that you believed her lies instead of trust in me. My voice didn't waver. And you sure as hell can't come crawling back, hoping I'll give you some kind of redemption. His throat bobbed. Cass, I stood up, cutting him off. I hope you figure yourself out, I said, voice cool. But it won't be with me. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. I expected to feel triumphant, victorious. But as I stepped onto the busy street, all I felt was a strange, hollow emptiness. Eric was out of my life. Lauren was humiliated. The wedding that was supposed to be mine had crumbled to dust in front of her. I had won. So why didn't it feel like a victory? I shook the thought away. This wasn't over yet. Because if I knew my sister, and I did, she wouldn't go down without a fight. And I was ready for her. I didn't have to wait long. Lauren showed up at my apartment that evening, pounding on the door like a storm demanding to be let in. I considered ignoring her, letting her stand there, desperate and humiliated, the way she had left me when she stole my fiancé. But no, I wanted to see her face. I opened the door slowly, leaning against the frame. Lauren. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, her wedding dress long discarded. She looked nothing like the glowing bride she had envisioned, only a woman stripped of her triumph, her eyes wild with rage, and something close to desperation. "How dare you?" she spat, shoving her way inside. I let her. I closed the door, watching as she stormed into my living room, spinning around with fire in her eyes. "You think this is funny?" she demanded. "You think I don't know this was your fault?" I raised a brow. "My fault? You did something. You poisoned him against me. You put doubts in his head. You always do this, Cassidy. You act like the perfect one, like the victim, but you're the real manipulator here." I let out a slow breath, crossing my arms. "Lauren, Eric left because he realized who you were. You didn't lose him because of me. You lost him because he finally saw the truth." She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "The truth. The truth is you've always hated me. You've always wanted to see me suffer." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Number, I wanted you to understand what it feels like. What it feels like to have everything ripped away by someone you trust. To watch someone you love choose a liar over you. To feel powerless." Her breath hitched. For the first time, her anger faltered. Just for a second. Then she shook her head violently. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You think this is over?" I smiled. A slow, deliberate smile. "Oh, Lauren, this was never about winning." I tilted my head. "But if it were, you would have lost the moment he left you standing alone." Her face twisted. For a second I thought she might slap me. Instead, she let out a low, trembling breath. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I shrugged. "Maybe." She stared at me for a moment longer, then turned and walked out the door, slamming it shut behind her. I exhaled, my hands finally unclenching at my sides. It was over. Or at least it should have been. Days passed. Then a week. I expected Lauren to lash out, to spread rumors, to twist the story in her favor. But she was silent. Too silent. And then the first crack appeared. A message from a mutual friend. "Have you seen Lauren's post?" I frowned, clicking the link. The screen loaded and my stomach turned. There it was. A long, tearful post, accompanied by a photo of Lauren, red-eyed, looking utterly devastated. I never thought the person I loved most would betray me like this. Some wounds never heal. Some people are never who they pretend to be. I gave everything, and in the end I was left with nothing. But I guess that's what happens when you trust the wrong person. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. I scrolled, my pulse quickening. People were sympathizing with her, calling her brave, wondering what kind of monster would hurt her like this. And then the words that made my blood run cold. "I hope whoever did this to you suffers." I clenched my phone, nausea rising. Lauren hadn't just licked her wounds. She had flipped the script. She was painting herself as the victim. And the worst part, no one knew she was lying. The worst part wasn't just seeing people rally behind her. It was seeing who was rallying behind her. People I had once called friends. People who had been at my wedding before it became hers. People who knew exactly what had happened, and yet still chose to believe her version of events. I scrolled through the comments, my hands tightening into fists. You deserve so much better, Lauren. Whoever did this to you is heartless. Stay strong, girl. Karma will get them. Some people just can't stand to see others happy. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, knowing I was the one being dragged under the wheels. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I heard it was her sister who did this. I froze. The comment had no name attached, just an anonymous user. But it was enough. A storm of replies followed. No way. That's disgusting. What kind of sister does that? If my sister did that to me, I'd ruin her life. My breath came faster. Lauren hadn't just played the victim. She had planted the seed. She wanted people to turn against me. She wanted me to suffer. And worst of all, it was working. The next few days were a blur of whispers, of side glances when I walked into a cafe, of messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly popping up in my inbox. Some were subtle. Hey, just checking in. Saw Lauren's post. Hope you're okay. Some were not. I never thought you'd be that kind of person, Cassidy. Unbelievable. But the real dagger came from my mother. A single text message. Short but sharp as a blade. Come to dinner. We need to talk. I stared at the screen, feeling the weight of those words settle over me like a suffocating blanket. I knew what this was. This wasn't a conversation. This was a trial, and I was walking straight into the lion's den. I arrived at my parents' house just past 6, the sun setting in a wash of orange and red over the horizon. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. The silence, the thick, unbearable tension. My mother sat at the dining table, her hands folded neatly in front of her. My father stood by the window, his back turned. And Lauren sat across from my mother, eyes red-rimmed, wrapped in the perfect image of heartbreak. It was a performance, a carefully orchestrated act. And I was the villain. I took a slow breath, closing the door behind me. "All right," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Let's talk." My mother was the first to speak. "We just want to understand," she said, her voice tight. "Lauren is devastated. Her wedding was ruined. Eric left her at the altar. And now—" She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "Now there are rumors, Cassidy." I didn't flinch. "Rumors? People are saying you had something to do with it," my father cut in, turning from the window at last. His gaze was hard, unreadable. "That you sabotaged your own sister's wedding." Lauren sniffled, dabbing at her eyes. "I don't want to believe it," she whispered. "I really don't. But Cassidy, you hated me for what happened with Eric. You never forgave me. You even said—" She stopped, biting her lip, as if she was too hurt to go on. I clenched my jaw. "I did hate you," I admitted. "I won't lie about that. But I didn't sabotage your wedding, Lauren. Eric left because he chose to leave. That's not on me." "But why now?" My mother pressed. Why did he suddenly change his mind on the wedding day? He was ready to marry her just days ago. I let out a sharp breath. Maybe he finally realized what he was getting himself into. The words hit their mark. Lauren's eyes flashed, and just like that, the mask cracked. "So that's it," she spat, dropping the act. "You're just innocent in all this? You just stood back and let it happen?" I tilted my head. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Lauren?" Her nostrils flared, but she had nothing but manipulation, twisted words, and a desperate need to make me the villain. And this time, it wasn't working. My father let out a heavy sigh, running a hand down his face. "Enough," he muttered. "Lauren, this isn't going to fix anything." But she... No. He cut her off with a look. Eric made his choice, and it wasn't Cassidy's fault. For a second, Lauren just stared at him. Then her gaze flickered to me. Pure hatred burned in her eyes. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And as I walked out of that house, I knew. She was just getting started. The storm didn't pass. If anything, it got worse. Lauren had lost Eric, lost the wedding, lost the fairy tale ending she had stolen from me. And now, instead of accepting the wreckage, she was doing what she did best. Rewriting the story. In her version, she wasn't just a heartbroken bride. She was a victim, and I was the one who had orchestrated it all. The lies spread like wildfire. People I hadn't spoken to in months, years, started reaching out. Some pretending to be concerned, others making it clear they had already picked a side. Did you really do it? I don't know what to believe, but this just seems extreme, even for you. Lauren's been through so much, Cassidy. How could you? Even people I barely knew were weighing in. A post from one of Lauren's bridesmaids showed up on my feed, vague enough to avoid outright slander, but pointed enough to do damage. Some betrayals cut deeper than knives. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. And under it, comments. Endless comments. Who does that to their own sister? Cassidy has always been jealous. We all saw it coming. Karma will get her. Karma. That one stung the most. Because if anyone deserved karma, it was Lauren. She had spent years twisting reality to suit her, bending people's perceptions until the truth barely mattered anymore. And now, she was doing it again. Rewriting history. Painting me as the villain in a story she had started. But here's the thing about rewriting stories. The real version never goes away. And I was about to make damn sure the truth came out. I didn't act right away. Lauren was expecting it. She wanted me to lash out, to go on the defensive, to scramble for a way to prove my innocence. She was counting on me reacting emotionally, making mistakes, giving her more ammunition. So I waited. I let the whispers build, let the rumors spread. I let her think she had won. And then I went for the kill. The first step was finding out the truth. Not my truth. Eric's. The man who had started this whole mess had vanished after the wedding day. But not completely. He was still in the city. He just wasn't answering Lauren's desperate calls. Wasn't feeding into the sob story she was spinning for the world. And that meant one thing. He was hiding something. It took a few days, but eventually, I found out where he was staying. A hotel downtown under his brother's name. I didn't call. I didn't text. I showed up, and when he opened the door, his face pale, his hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled like he hadn't slept in days. I knew. Cassidy. He breathed, running a hand through his hair. Jesus. I didn't think you'd talk. I finished for him. Yeah, well, you've been avoiding everyone, Eric. Figured I'd skip the pleasantries. He hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in. The room smelled like stale air and regret. Eric sat on the edge of the bed, his shoulders slumped, his hands clasped between his knees. He looked wrecked. Lauren's tearing the city apart looking for you, I said, leaning against the dresser. She's also telling everyone I'm the reason you left, that I sabotaged the wedding. He winced. I heard. I raised a brow. And? Eric let out a breath, dragging a hand down his face. It's bullshit. I already knew that. But hearing him say it, that was something else. He looked up at me then, and for the first time in years, I saw something real in his expression. Guilt. I should have never left you for her, he admitted. I don't know what I thought. She made it seem like she was everything I wanted, like you weren't enough for me, and I was stupid enough to believe her. The words should have hurt, but they didn't. Not anymore. I folded my arms. So what happened, Eric? Why did you leave her at the altar? He hesitated. Then after a long, heavy silence, she cheated, he said. My stomach dropped. What? He let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, I found out the night before the wedding. She didn't even deny it when I confronted her. Just tried to justify it. Said I'd never really love her the way she wanted, that she deserved more, that she was just keeping her options open. Something inside me clicked. The whole picture came together. Lauren had spent months convincing Eric I wasn't good enough. She had stolen him from me, taken everything I had built, and she still hadn't been satisfied, because that's who she was. A black hole. No matter what she had, it was never enough. I let out a slow breath. Do you have proof? Eric blinked. What? I met his gaze. Proof, Eric. Receipts, messages, photos, anything. A beat of silence. Then, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He reached for it, hesitated, then handed it to me. And there it was. The real story. Screenshots. Messages. A tangled web of deception that Lauren had woven behind the scenes while parading herself as the perfect bride. This wasn't just proof. This was a loaded gun, and I was about to pull the trigger. When I left the hotel that night, I knew exactly what I had to do. Lauren had set the stage for war. She had painted me as the villain, the jealous sister who had stolen her happiness, who had ruined her perfect day. But she had made one fatal mistake. She had underestimated me, and now I was going to destroy her. I didn't go straight for the kill. That would have been too easy. And Lauren didn't deserve easy. She deserved to feel the walls closing in, the ground cracking beneath her feet, the weight of her lies crashing down in slow, agonizing waves. So I planned. I let a few days pass. Let her think she had won the narrative war. She was still milking the sympathy, playing the tragic heroine for social media, posting vague captions about betrayal and heartbreak, hinting that someone had sabotaged her wedding. The comments rolled in, the pity flowed, and Lauren soaked it up like a starving leech. And then I struck. The first thing I did was send the screenshots to a few key people. Not to Lauren. Not yet. I started with her bridesmaids, the ones who had been the loudest in defending her, the ones who had turned their backs on me without question. No explanation, no context, just the raw, undeniable truth. Screenshots of her messages with another man, photos, dates, a timeline so damning that even the most devoted follower of the cult of Lauren couldn't deny it. And then I waited. It didn't take long. Within hours, the whispers started. The same people who had dragged my name through the mud were now backpedaling, their loyalties cracking under the weight of hard evidence. The group chats that had once buzzed with gossip about me were now filled with silence, then hesitant messages, then outright chaos. Did you see the messages? Is this real? Lauren said it was all Cassidy's fault, but holy shit, she lied. Then, I took it a step further. I sent the screenshots to Eric's family. They had never liked Lauren. Not really. They had tolerated her because Eric had chosen her. But now, faced with the truth, the betrayal, the sheer audacity of it all, they turned. Her in-laws-to-be, her almost in-laws, were now cutting her off completely. No sympathy, no comfort. Just cold, bitter disappointment. And the final blow. I sent it all to our parents. Lauren found out the way she always did. Too late to stop it. I wasn't there when she saw the messages. I didn't need to be, because the fallout was instantaneous. Our mother, the same woman who had begged me to be the bigger person, now refused to answer Lauren's calls. Our father, who had always favored her, was suddenly ashamed to be associated with her. And Lauren lost it. I didn't block her number. I wanted to hear her unravel, and when the calls started coming in, I let them go to voicemail, one after another, desperate, furious, clawing for control. You bitch. You set me up. You think you're so clever, don't you? You think this makes you better than me. You ruined my life. You're just a jealous, pathetic. Delete, delete, delete. And then, finally, the one I had been waiting for. Cassidy, please. You don't understand. I wasn't thinking. I made a mistake. Please, just talk to me. I pressed play, listening to the crack in her voice, the raw edge of panic. And then, I smiled. She wasn't angry anymore. She was afraid. I waited until the dust had settled, until she had been left to stew in her own disgrace. And then finally, I answered. Her voice was small, fragile. Cassidy. I let the silence stretch, savoring the moment. Then finally, I guess karma really did get me, huh? She made a sound, somewhere between a sob and a choke. And I hung up. She had stolen my wedding, my fiancé, my dignity. Now I had taken everything from her, and it felt like justice. There was a time when I thought revenge would taste sweet, that watching Lauren crumble would feel like the ultimate victory. And in some ways, it was. But here's the thing. No one tells you about revenge. Once you get it, once the dust settles and your enemy is left with nothing, you're still left with yourself. And after everything I had done, I wasn't sure who I had become. I had won. I had exposed her. I had torn down the golden pedestal she had built for herself, brick by brick. But in the quiet of my apartment, with my phone finally silent and my heart still pounding from the high of it all, a question gnawed at me. What now? For years my life had revolved around Lauren. First, as the sister I loved. Then, as the enemy I loathed. Every decision I had made since the day she stole Eric had been about her, getting back at her, proving myself, making sure she felt what I had felt. And now, she was gone. No more messages, no more phone calls, no more scheming, just silence. I should have felt at peace. Instead, I felt untethered. A week passed, then another. Life moved on, as it always does. People stopped talking about the scandal. Lauren's name faded from conversations. And me. I was supposed to be moving forward. I threw myself into work. I took on more projects, stayed late at the office, convinced myself that I was fine, that everything had played out exactly as it should have. Then one night, I got an email. Not from Lauren. Not from Eric. From an unknown sender. No subject line. No greeting. Just a single line of text. Are you happy now? I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening. The email wasn't threatening. It wasn't angry. It was something else. Something that sent a shiver down my spine. I deleted it. But the question lingered. Was I happy now? I didn't know. And that terrified me more than anything. Maybe revenge wasn't the end of the story. Maybe it was just the beginning of something else. Something I wasn't ready to face yet. Because if I wasn't Lauren's victim anymore, who was I?